Friends, in recent weeks, the crypto space has been exploding with pessimism. Experts, one after another, claim that crypto is finished, that we are facing a year-long downturn, a total collapse, and that what we're seeing now is nothing more than a dead cat bounce. I listened to all of this, thought about it, and decided to take a different route. If the market really were to drop another 50%, which coins would I buy back on the very first day? I've put together a selection of projects that, in my opinion, will not only survive, but show the strongest potential in the next cycle. Let's begin. Before we start, this is not financial advice. Everything I talk about is my view and my subjective judgment. Use it as an additional point of view, not as a call to action. My goal is to build a portfolio that covers different narratives, segments, and leaders. Because this cycle showed one thing very clearly. There was no global alt season. There were only local waves. First, Solana and its ecosystem. Trump, Melania, and other memes. Jupiter and everything that pumped on Solana. Then rotation into the Ethereum direction, where Ondo and other altcoins ran. Then individual sectors, RWA, decentralized perps, AI, infrastructure. So let's go step by step. We start with the giant, Ethereum. It has long proven itself as the mastodon of this market. Despite new L1, hype, narratives, and trends, the majority of real capital still sits on Ethereum. All key DeFi systems, major RWA projects, corporate pilots, all of that still lives on Ethereum's base layer. Look at what operates there. Lido, Eigenlayer, Aave, Maker, PayPal with PYUSD, MasterCard with the multi-token network, BlackRock with tokenized funds, JP Morgan with Onyx. These aren't small companies or startups. These are corporate giants that won't test their systems on something questionable. They're building massive ecosystems for large capital. And in crypto, only Ethereum can offer such a platform. And it's important to mention that people used to launch new blockchains by the dozen just to replace Ethereum because transactions were slow and could cost hundreds of dollars. But today, the picture is completely different. Ethereum transactions cost pennies and are fast. So it's obvious that Ethereum has done enormous work to improve its network, and combined with its reliability, it makes the blockchain highly attractive. Now let's add another key piece that many people still underestimate: staking. At this moment, 30% of the entire Ethereum supply is staked. Today, more than 35 million ETH are locked in staking. What does this mean in practice? Just look at this chart. The growth since May is very strong, plus 2 million ETH. Staking offers a stable yield of about 3 to 5% annually, and a large share of investors aren't planning to withdraw those tokens anytime soon. And one more big advantage for Ethereum. If someone is far from crypto and doesn't know how to use exchanges or wallets, they can purchase token through Spot Ethereum ETF. By the way, recently we've seen an interesting trend. On Deribit, the most popular call option for Ethereum is the strike at $6,500. Open interest on this strike is around $380 million, a very solid number. But according to Deribit's own data, call options at $4,100, $5,100, and $5,500 are also popular. I want to emphasize, this is just an important observation, not a call to action. So if you decide to buy this asset now and not wait for a possible 50% correction, at least do it using a DCA strategy. And now, I suggest we move on to the next asset. Now, let's talk about Sui, a project many people underestimate, but one that is already becoming one of the key players of the next cycle. This is not just another fast blockchain. It was created by the developers at Miston Labs, the former Meta/Diem team, and the entire network is built on Move and parallel transaction execution. In other words, Sui was designed from scratch as infrastructure for mass Web3 adoption, gaming, commerce, social apps, and DeFi with Web 2 level speed, not as yet another L1 for meme coins. Over the past year, Sui has formed a very strong ecosystem. The network now has native USDC, new stablecoins in the Sui USDE format, USDI, and its own USD Sui. meaning a real financial base for DeFi has emerged. On-chain, liquidity, and the number of projects continue to grow, although after the recent flash crash, you can see a slight pullback from the highs. But the main thing is institutions. Grayscale launched Grayscale Sui Trust, which is already trading, and the asset itself entered the Bitwise 10 crypto index. This shows a clear trend. Sui is gradually entering traditional financial infrastructure. In parallel, Mill City Ventures announced a private placement worth hundreds of millions of dollars with the goal of massively buying Sui on the market. And Bitwise 21 Shares and Canary Funds filed applications for spot ETFs. Yes, the probability of approval is not very high yet, but in any case, it is still a step toward positive progress. This is an asset slowly being integrated into fund products, corporate strategies, and long-term investment portfolios. Sui is still young, but in terms of growth speed, technological base, and level of institutional interest, it is one of the most interesting L1s worth watching very closely. However, there are also downsides that I cannot ignore. There are constant token unlocks, which can negatively affect the price of the asset. Does this negate all the advantages the project has? What do you think? Write in the comments. By the way, friends, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I regularly post important and interesting content here. For example, in my last video, I talked about 3 very interesting assets with strong potential. So if you don't want to miss this kind of content, subscribe. Now let's move on to the next asset. Let's talk about one of the standout AI projects of this cycle, and that is Bitensor. Not just another coin with an AI sticker on it, but a full-fledged decentralized infrastructure aiming to create an open market for artificial intelligence. The key feature of Bitensor is that the entire network is built around subnets, separate markets where models compete with each other. Validators rank them by quality, and through the UMA consensus, the protocol determines who receives the most Bitensor. In effect, this is neural mining, not hardware farms, but a network of intelligence where the smartest survive. Thanks to this approach, Bitensor began attracting researchers, AI teams, and blockchain developers who want to launch their services in an open market instead of depending on big corporations. Why are subnets powerful? Because they allow the system to scale almost infinitely. Instead of building one giant market where all models are mixed together, Bitensor created 128 separate economies. Each one can grow independently, attract its own developers, build its own culture, and generate its own traffic. It's as if Ethereum consisted not of one chain, but 128 different networks with their own incentive logic. And here's another important point: competition. Each subnet has its own alpha index, which shows how valuable its product is to the entire system. If a subnet is useful, it receives more newly issued Bitensor. If not, issuance decreases. This creates evolution inside the network. Weak subnets die, strong ones rise, and models constantly improve so they don't get pushed out of the market. It's like natural selection, but among algorithms. Recently, Bitensor has started being accumulated by funds that previously never touched altcoins. Synergies on NASDAQ increased their holdings to over 54,000 Bitensor. Oblong invested $8 million and staked the entire amount inside the network. And in Europe, the first physically backed ETP on Tau token is being launched, which will be traded on CX, Euronext, and Xetra. And it's also important to note that Bitensor, like Bitcoin, has its own halving cycles. In December, the issuance is cut in half, from 7,200 to 3,600 coins per day. And this is a strong signal because more than 70% of the circulating supply is already staked. This means only a small portion of tokens is actually floating on the market, and after the halving, the available amount will shrink even more. But even in such a strong story, there are risks. The concentration of coins among large holders is a real challenge noted by 21 Shares and other analysts. Add to this the potential regulatory interest in DAI projects, and you'll understand that this is not an easy asset for everyone. But there are no perfect, risk-free investments, so make your conclusions carefully. Friends, thank you for watching. I want to remind you that this was a selection of coins I would buy if we saw a 50% or greater market correction. Like the video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to leave a comment if you want to see part 2 of this list. And remember, this video is not financial advice, just my view of the market.